Hello and welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I've got some breaking news coming out from Russia to share with you. We've got reports that Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, wants a ceasefire in Ukraine, and he's laid out conditions to Volodymyr Zelenskyy in order to achieve this ceasefire. So part of this proposal, what he is demanding is that Kiev withdraws all of their troops from all the annexed regions of Ukraine. So that includes Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia, and I would assume Crimea as well. But the troops aren't obviously down there in Crimea. But I'm assuming that Russian President Vladimir Putin would want to claim Crimea as well. But yeah, as long as they withdraw their troops from these regions and end the fighting, this would be part of the proposal. The other part of it is that if Ukraine does not join NATO, then we would have a full ceasefire in Ukraine. So these are two big things that Russian President Vladimir Putin is demanding, is to withdraw the troops from the four regions that are currently annexed by Russia, and then also Ukraine cannot join NATO. So obviously, I don't think we will see any kind of positive response, which we're starting to see that already coming from the West and coming from Ukraine's government, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, the president. He's already come out many times and said that they will not negotiate with Russia until all their troops completely leave all of these annexed regions of Ukraine, including Crimea. So most likely we won't see any positive news come from this and any kind of a ceasefire. At least that's what I'm thinking. But who knows? We'll have to see how this plays out. So I've got more information to go over with you today. We're going to be checking out an article to get you some more information. And then I want to show you some responses, some video responses from some of the world leaders around the world, primarily from the West, that are responding to this proposal. And so far, it's not any kind of positive response from what I'm seeing. So we'll show you that here in just a minute. But first, I want to get right into this on the BBC. Putin lays out his terms for ceasefire in Ukraine. So this just coming out 1 hour ago today on June 14th, 2024, at the time that I record this. So it says here, Vladimir Putin has said Ukraine would need to fully withdraw troops from territories Russia claims to have annexed before a ceasefire could begin, a proposal Ukraine immediately called offensive to common sense. So they called it that immediately. Said this is very offensive to common sense, that it obviously, in their words, what this means to me is it doesn't make any sense that the aggressor who invaded our nation, took control of certain areas, stole our land, is now demanding that we pull away from the fighting when we're trying to defend our land and take back our land, and all these regions that have been taken away from us. So they're saying here that this is offensive to what they consider common sense, right? So it's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has long said Ukraine would not negotiate with Moscow until Russian forces leave all Ukrainian territory, including Crimea. The Russian president also said Ukraine would have to give up on joining NATO before peace talks could start. Mr. Putin's statement setting out his ceasefire conditions comes as leaders from 90 countries prepared to meet in Switzerland on Saturday to discuss paths towards peace in Ukraine, a summit Russia has not been invited to. Speaking to a meeting of Russian ambassadors in Moscow on Friday, Mr. Putin called on the Ukrainian government to withdraw from four regions partially occupied by Russia: Donetsk, Luhansk, Kherson, and Zaporizhia. He also said Ukraine would need to officially give up its efforts to join the NATO military alliance for the Russian advance to be halted. Mr. Putin said, as soon as Kiev declares it is ready for such a decision, in order to ceasefire and begin negotiations will immediately follow from our side, literally at the same minute. Ukrainian presidential advisor Mikhailo Podolyak called the proposal a complete sham and offensive to common sense. The country's foreign ministry said it is absurd for Putin, who planned, prepared, and executed together with his accomplices the largest armed aggression in Europe since World War II, to present himself as a peacemaker. NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg rejected the offer, saying it was not made in good faith. So clearly, lots of pushback here with this proposal. I understand why Ukraine feels the way they do regarding this. We'll have to see if there is any kind of a ceasefire. I don't think there will be, based on this proposal. But something that I wanted to note here, I think the timing on this ceasefire proposal is very interesting, because what have we seen happening lately in just the last few weeks? Well, just going back to the last 2 weeks, roughly around that time, that's when Russia decided to expand their operations and start attacking the Kharkiv region. And they launched a pretty sizable force in that area, took control of a few villages, and then kind of stalled out, right? Ukraine, supposedly, from what we understand, has taken control of the Kharkiv region. They've also now started striking inside of Russian territory. That's put an end to a lot of the attacks inside of Kharkiv, the actual city. So that region seems to have stabilized, and we haven't really heard much coming from the Kharkiv region, right? And so now it looks like their offensive in that region is starting to fail. And we've also heard that come out from Volodymyr Zelenskyy. He stated that the Russians have failed in that region. And then also, we have the G7 summit going on right now. And during this G7 summit with all these Western world leaders, they started to announce 50 billion in support for Ukraine using Russian frozen assets that were taken during the start of the war. So Ukraine's going to be getting another 50 billion in aid potentially this year on top of the 60 billion they got back in March or April, somewhere around there. They started getting more funds from the U.S. and now they're going to get more from these G7 leaders whenever they start to release these funds to Ukraine, another 50 billion in euros, I believe. So, we've got all this aid flowing to Ukraine now. Ukraine's starting to become more powerful with all the weaponry they're getting. Now they're striking Russian territory. And then on top of that, major sanctions were just announced that I reported yesterday on Russia that targeted many of their banks, any foreign banks that do business with Russia. If they're supplying any kind of even if it's just semiconductors, even if it's not exactly weapons, bombs, ammunition, whatever it might be, anything they're supplying to this war effort for Russia to fight this war in Ukraine, they could be at risk of sanctions. So these banks are no longer going to want to be doing business with Russia. We've heard lots of news that Russian banks are starting to close. They've closed down their websites. They're not letting customers pull out money from their banks. So I'm hearing lots of destabilization happening within Russia and their financial system. So is this Russia showing that they're in a very dangerous position here, and they are trying to put an end to this war because of all these forces at the same time capitalizing and smashing down on their economy and putting a stop to this war? We'll have to see. But I just wanted to note that the timing of this is very interesting based on the news that I've been covering lately. So two other things I want to show you here real quick. We've got some reports here on X. So two videos I want to show you. We're going to talk about Jens Stoltenberg right here. Then we're also going to talk about U.S. Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin. Okay, so this is from Anton Gerashenko. It is not for Ukraine to withdraw forces from Ukrainian territory. It's for Russia to withdraw their forces from occupied Ukrainian land. This proposal is a proposal that actually means that Russia should have the right to occupy even more Ukrainian land, says Jens Stoltenberg. So this is the NATO chief, and I want to show you this video, 55 seconds. Let's take a look at his response, okay?
It's not for Ukraine to withdraw forces from Ukrainian territory. It's for Russia to withdraw their forces from occupied Ukrainian land. And this proposal is a proposal that actually means that Russia should have the right to occupy even more Ukrainian land. All the four provinces that they claim are not Ukrainian. So this just demonstrates that this is not a proposal made in good faith, but this is a proposal that actually means that Russia should achieve their war aims by also expecting or expecting that Ukraine should give up significantly more land. It's not for Ukraine.
So as we can see here, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg not happy with his proposal, and he says that basically Russia should not have the right to dictate what Ukraine does, especially considering they were attacked. And then obviously Ukraine should fight back and try to get their land back, and not signal to Vladimir Putin that they can just do this, invade another country, take their land, and then just call for a peace. Like you can't do that, basically, is what he's saying. So I thought it was interesting, his response. So yeah, we're not seeing good responses so far from the West regarding this proposal. One last thing I wanted to show you here again from Anton Gerashenko. Putin has illegally occupied sovereign Ukrainian territory. He is not in any position to dictate to Ukraine what they must do to bring about peace. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. So, kind of like what I was mentioning here. So, let's hear from Lloyd Austin as well, what his response is.
You know, Putin has illegally occupied sovereign Ukrainian territory. He is not in any position to dictate to Ukraine what they must do to bring about a peace. I think, that's exactly the kind of behavior that we don't want to see. You know, Putin has...
All right, so basically the same type of response that we're seeing from the U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, similar response to Jens Stoltenberg. So clearly what we're hearing here from the West is that they're not okay with this proposal. That's why I don't think anything like this will happen. I don't think we'll see any kind of a ceasefire deal in Ukraine at this time. But who knows? Who knows what will happen? Maybe Volodymyr Zelenskyy will come out with some sort of like counter to this. And maybe they will actually be able to come to some sort of agreement. But in my opinion, what this signals to me is that Russia's in a very dangerous position. And because their financial system was heavily hit yesterday, we even heard reports that the Moscow Stock Exchange was closed for a period of time, I believe, as well. I was hearing something like that their stock exchange was really hit here heavily as well, because they can no longer trade in euros or dollars, I believe. So, obviously Russia's being pressured here heavily to end this war. They're almost being forced into a corner where they almost can't fight this no more. And, what if they can't get the supplies that they need? Maybe they're realizing that in 6 months from now, they can't fight this war anymore. So they're trying to get a peace deal now, end the war, and cede the territory that they've already taken. And maybe they realize that they're not going to be able to achieve all the goals that maybe they wanted to. Vladimir Putin wanted to take, I think, much more land of Ukraine, or maybe take over Ukraine. But maybe they realize that they don't have the capability to do so militarily. I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. Those are just kind of some thoughts that I was thinking of regarding this topic. But share your thoughts, concerns, and opinions down in the comments section. But that's going to be it for this update. I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. With that, I hope y'all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.